Welcome in. If you haven't seen this movie, you probably shouldn't be here, but with that said, let's review Tropic Thunder. Spoilers. I just talked about movies that I love in my last podcast, not film review, but podcast, callcast. Talked about movies I love, specifically comedies, and the influences that a lot of them had on me. I didn't mention this movie because of how much I love it, so now I wanted to talk about it in one full episode. All the movies I said that I loved in my podcast episode are parodies. They're spoofs of movies that came before them or movies that came out around the same time. Well, before. Tropic Thunder does the exact same thing, and it's a parody of Hollywood, specifically their portrayals of war and combat in the movies that they produce. This movie follows a group of actors who are cast in a war movie. Not only a war movie, but one based on a real-life soldier called Four Leaf who lost his hands in the war, or so we think. Ben Stiller, who plays Tug Speedman, whose acting career is declining after a series of sequels defines his career as a superhero action movie star. It defines it so much that, to the point that he takes on a movie role about an autistic man to break away from the action movie image that he has attached to him in the industry. He wants to find his Oscar-worthy performance, and is now. That's all I wrote. Huh, okay, well, I think I meant is now cast in his latest movie role, which is in this war movie and stuff. Robert Downey Jr. plays Kirk Lazarus, who is an Australian actor who goes to extreme lengths for his movie roles, including the preparation for his latest movie role, which is as an African-American soldier, even though he is a Caucasian. That was a big deal at the time for Robert Downey Jr. to play blackface, and I think it's becoming a bigger deal now. Even though it's been 15, 16 years since this movie released. It came out in 2008. Jack Black plays Jeff Portnoy, who is pigeonholed into being this comedy, goofy fat guy. Like his latest movie role is playing a family of obese people who just fart for their humor. That's like the whole thing. Because of this, he's unhappy and insecure about his career and also a heroin addict, which is not funny. This was directed by Ben Stiller as well. He also directed The Cable Guy. I don't know how widely known that is, but The Cable Guy was directed by Ben Stiller too. Stiller has also gone on to direct some dramatic TV stuff too, like Escape at Dannemora, which is a miniseries, or his latest directorial thing is Severance on Apple TV. We open on a music video for a drink called Booty Sweat, owned by a rapper turned actor named Al Pacino. This leads into 3 other movie trailers that follow every trope of a blockbuster movie trailer that comes out so perfectly. And this serves as introducing us to our main characters so cleverly. It's in your face, sets the tone immediately, and gives us backstory into our characters, because the lead up is to now, after the trailers, the opening sequence is the movie that all of these actors are making. It plays out and like a what was I saying? Oh, it plays out like an actual war movie, and while spoofing Vietnam War movies that came out before it, like Rambo, Platoon, Apocalypse Now, We Were Soldiers. There's little references throughout the entire movie, referencing those 4 movies specifically, and probably some other ones that I haven't seen, like Born on the 4th of July, came out in 89, Vietnam War movie kind of based on a guy who was really affected, put in a wheelchair because of the war. Tom Cruise is in that, hey, maybe that's the reference to Born on the 4th of July, is having Tom Cruise in this movie. That's probably it. That was loud. All of a sudden, during this emotional scene between Kirk Lazarus and Tug Speedboat, remember, I'm not gonna say the actual characters' names, the actors' names. Dang it. I hate when I mess up my words. This is where the movie lets you in on the joke, because Tug Speedman, he calls cut in the middle of this scene. because he's being outacted by Kirk Lazarus. So he calls cut, and in the movie that we're watching, all of a sudden cuts and reveals the film crew set that is right beside them, like in their face filming. And because of the scene, because it stopped, there's this huge special effects fire explosion that happens, but because they weren't filming and it was like interrupted, it was a waste. Which, like, in the context of that being a film set, would absolutely be devastating for the production, mainly the financial aspect of the production. So then it shows Tug Speedman at home, and he's watching the news. I love that he's wearing fake claws for hands, because in the scene, his character lost his hands. He's playing the real-life character. I do quotations for what we discover later in the movie. That was painful on my tooth. He's wearing the claws because he's a method actor, so he has to, spend his personal life in the stuff. That'd be like me making my horror movie Folly 2 years ago and just wearing the Wolverine claws everywhere that I go because I'm in character. That's exactly what it'd be like. No cap. So, Tropic Thunder, Ben Stiller as the director obviously has this whole Hollywood commentary on actors who take it to extreme lengths, like Kirk Lazarus doing the reverse Michael Jackson. So, the movie has wasted a whole bunch of money, and they call into the producer and have a FaceTime call, whatever. I'm doing this a lot today. It's Les Grossman, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise actually had a big hand in putting together aspects of Les Grossman, his image, hairy arms, the bald, the beard. Apparently, a lot of people didn't know it was Tom Cruise until they saw his name appear on the credits, but how do you not know that's Tom Cruise? They don't hide him enough. Grossman gets a key grip, which is a position on a film set. He gets a key grip to punch the director in the face because he's so pissed at him for all the money he wasted. The man behind the true story, Four Leaf, played by Nick Nolte. He has this brilliant idea, which is to take the actors in this movie, put them in the wilderness, in the jungle, create the movie around them, and don't let them in on what's going to happen. Real explosions, real combat, real fear, real emotion. I feel like there was a fifth one, but I don't want to think of it. And it would all be for the authenticity of the war film, which is an epiphany for the director. You like my hand signals and stuff? And gives him the power so that Tug Speedman can't interrupt the scenes anymore and waste any more of the studio's money and time. Shooting it guerrilla style, getting it gritty and dirty. That's a quote from him in the movie. This is a good idea in theory, except for what happens. The director leads all the actors out into the jungle and explains the rules to them. But at the very end of it all, he steps on a landmine and just explodes. And the guys just stand there, and Jack Black is like, yeah! He's getting all pumped for, this movie to get started. When he shouts and cheers like that, there are hostiles in the area, natives to the land. I think they're in some foreign country. I thought it was Vietnam, but that'd be a little strange. I think it's China, because they're Chinese and they're speaking Chinese, or Mandarin towards the end. These hostiles think that these are real U.S. soldiers. They see the exploded body. One of the Ben Stiller's character picks up the head and taunts it around and stuff. So these fake U.S. soldiers are just movie stars. They think it's all a movie. Therein lies the comedy. We've seen this concept before with Three Amigos. It's people who are in real danger but think it's only a movie. So they treat it like it's just all fun. The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray also bases its plot off of this premise too. So the natives start actually shooting at them, but hitting nothing. And the actors are shooting back with their blank bullets. They're mowing them down, but not really. It's just blank bullets. Alec Baldwin, Danny McBride, his character Cody, handles all the explosives. He was the guy that detonated on the signal. He keeps thinking that he's seeing, like, oh, that's the signal, and he'll detonate a bomb. He thinks that the gunfire happening is the signal, so he detonates a bunch of C4 that they had planted, and that scares away these native, hostiles. Hostiles or hostiles? That fuels the actors into thinking, oh, yeah, man, we scared them off, man, oh, yeah. Ben Stiller... Tug Speedman's like, that's the trailer. Tug leads the group of them 5 on their way. They're thinking that there's cameras placed and we're going on filming our scenes guerrilla style as we go. Running their lines and stuff. They have this map of where they're supposed to end up. Cody, the explosives guy, and Four Leaf, they go visit the location with a helicopter where the director exploded, and they see that was not one of our bombs. That was an actual landmine. They're ambushed by the natives who will capture the 2, Cody and Four Leaf. During this exchange, Cody also finds out that Four Leaf does not actually have... What am I trying to say? He does have his hands when he has written a book and they're making a movie off of him based on him being this war hero that did not have his hands, and he has his hands. So this whole movie production has crumbled now. The actors are losing their mind. Jack Black is starting withdrawals because he didn't bring his heroin with him. And that's a funny aspect of this movie, is the withdrawals that Jack Black has to, go through. His mental state declines until the climax of the movie. Kirk Lazarus, I'm just going to do this for the rest of the time, he knows that the director is dead. And the movie is no longer a thing that's happening. It's over. So Tug Speedman goes his own route. Route? He still thinks he's acting in a movie, even when he's captured and taken to the natives' camp. He's like, all right, POW camp, scene 67. Like, you just doesn't get it. And the other 4 actors are like, we're out of here. We're going for safety. Cody and Four Leaf are in captivity now, where Four Leaf confesses, I was just like in the sanitation department, in the what was it called? Coast Guard. So he was just a garbage man. He just wrote the book as a tribute. He's just a patriot. He's not actually... So that is funny commentary, too, on some of these based on true stories that Hollywood comes out with. Tug is able to call his agent, who is played by Matthew McConaughey, so that gets the rescue mission started to come and rescue him. Because Tug is so in character that he's talking to him in character. In captivity, when being hit, he says something, Tug says something, that makes them realize that this is Simple Jack. And I love it because there are a lot of movies made in America that can be bombs inside the States but are big hits outside the States. And that's what happens here with Simple Jack, the autistic man movie role that Tug had. This gives them the idea to hold Tug Speedman for ransom for like $100 million. They call his agent. He's getting calls from them and he has to pay up or else. Which is when he gets Les Grossman involved. Les Grossman. Les goes on that crazy vulgar rant, and the other guy with Flaming Dragon just has to sit there on the other end of the line like, I've never been insulted or threatened like that before. Rescue is on the way, but in the meantime, Tug Speedman has to perform the whole movie of Simple Jack. He says he's doing this performance like 5 times a day. The actors are able to infiltrate the camp the next day, and they go to where Tug is, and they go and get Cody and Four Leaf. Jeff Portnoy, Jack Black, he goes for the drugs, because this camp is no ordinary camp. It's actually a heroin manufacturing camp that these I think they're Chinese again. Him going to get the drugs throws a wrench in the whole rescue plan. He doesn't actually get them, and that's a whole funny scene too. He has this whole hand-to-hand combat where Jack Black just tackles this 8-year-old kid into, like, through the wall, through the, if not the ceiling, tackles him to the ground, sees the drugs, uses the drugs to put the bad guys to sleep, and he's like, hurry, we only have 16 hours before they wake up. While all that action is happening, Kirk Lazarus goes and is trying to talk Tug Speedman out of his brainwash because he's so method acting that he's like back in the Simple Jack character. in this conversation, it's funny because it's showing the drastic, bipolar, insecure egos that the actors have. Even Kirk Lazarus has this mental breakdown in the scene. But once they snap back to reality, the escape is on. They have to get back to the chopper, cross this bridge. And I love that Tug, they're all get to the chopper and Tug is like, I found a home here. I have to stay. And he goes back across the bridge and then comes back running with the kid on his back stabbing him. And he like chucks him off the bridge. But they blow up the bridge. The kid's okay. And they make it to the chopper, but before they all make it onto the chopper, Tug and Kirk have this really emotional scene, hearkening back to the scene that they paused and, interrupted and ruined in the beginning, where Kirk was out acting. He was like, sobbing and crying, and Tug couldn't. He's like trying to cry. So during this scene at the end, Tug actually does cry, and I love Kirk's line when he's like, oh, you got a real tear there. He's speaking in an Australian accent now, and he's like, you got a real tear there. That's the thing that accolades are made of. Like, if you have to cry if you win an Oscar, I love that. And he does. Tug Speedman wins the Oscar, and that's the end of the movie. So Les Grossman leads us into the dance during the ending credits, which is also Tom Cruise's idea to have done that, and seems so out of character for him. But I, like a man, I love that Ben Stiller made this movie the way that he did. You have to click pieces together along the way. As the director, he doesn't tell you outright what's happening, or if you don't understand the POV of the movie, then you're not really going to be on board for the movie. This was also on the tail end of when this movie could have been made and not be canceled or met with some public outrage. Robert Downey Jr. talked about making this movie on the Joe Rogan podcast just a few years ago, 2019 I think, and said that Ben Stiller's vision for this movie was so precise. The whole time he was directing, he knew exactly what his vision was for the movie. And it comes across that way. The humor is very tight. It's like one big block, one tight block, just delivered in a package. It's not fractured at all like a bunch of comedy writers had a hand in making it. This was two people writing it. Ben Stiller, who was the director, star, probably had a hand in editing, and his one other person who must have aligned with his humor. The movie is far from being politically correct, which wasn't even a term in 2007. Don't pretend it was, which is when it was being shot. I applaud them for doing that because it's still tasteful, and it's always punching up. They don't ever punch down in their humor. They're always punching up to Hollywood, or punching their fellow actors for how far they go in their movie roles, or for their escapades in their own personal lives, like in front of the paparazzi and stuff. Robert Downey Jr. said that he needed his wife to read the script before he said yes to the movie. Gave it to his wife read it, and she laughed the entire time. And then she said to him, "This is so wrong, but it's so true." And that encapsulates this whole movie. When people outrage about it, they're blatantly missing the point. People outraging about it, it just reflects back on themselves. And like I said, the blackface is becoming a bigger deal because at the time when it came out, everybody raged at Ben Stiller for the inclusion of the Simple Jack character. And there's a scene in the movie where they use the word retard probably 35 different times in, the span of one scene. So that outrage kind of overshadowed Robert Downey Jr.'s blackface in the movie, which I think that issue is growing bigger now because I just saw it was trending all over my social media just last week. Ben Stiller will not apologize for Tropic Thunder. I'm like, why is that a news article, a headline right now? Robert Downey Jr. will not apologize for Tropic Thunder. I was like, holy cow, why are they getting so much heat right now for this movie? Tropic Thunder. I'll never forget discovering this movie. For the first time, I was in awe of what I was seeing, and every time I've watched it since, the magic has dissipated, and a little bit more each time, which is such a bummer. I'll never forget. I can always cherish discovering this movie for the first time, for sure. So that's my episode. Thank you guys so much for being here. See you next week. Peace.